What's up, legend? I want to start off by jumping straight into this video today because I'm going to take a guess as to here's where you might be at. Okay? You might be currently in a phase right now where what has built you to this point, if I was to ask you that question, you would probably say hard work, determination, and pure grit. And you'd be 100% correct. Because where you're at right now, you've built through determination, grit. You built it when you were doubting yourself. You built it by carrying more than you'd like to admit. You built it when you said you were fine, but actually internally you're running on fumes. You've built it by staying up late, by taking on extra responsibility, by over delivering, by pushing through when you're tired, by pushing through fear, by pushing through your emotions, by pushing through self doubt. And I could keep going on, but what I'm trying to say is you've worked really fucking hard. And it worked. But what I also might be happening right now is that even though it has worked, it's starting to feel heavier than it needs to be. Right? So you go now on your day to day and you try and do what you've always done, but for some reason there seems to be this heaviness and this internal resistance and this what the hell is happening to me feeling, right? You feel like you don't have any edge, you feel like you don't have anything to get you going, there's no urgency behind your movements, and you start to question yourself. So what happens then, if we translate that into how that's impacting your work, is you might be trying to create, knowing what to do, but then still not being able to know exactly how to execute it. You might find yourself going to create something, but then just staring at the computer screen for longer than you need to be and be like, what's actually happening to me? And you know what the next level requires for you, but for some reason, every time that you go to step into it, you hesitate. You pull back, and there's this like feeling that you just don't want to move forward, even though you do. And all of that because it's such a headfuck. You start to wonder if you're the problem. Maybe you start to think that you need more clarity. Maybe you start to think that you might need a better plan. Maybe you start to think that you need more time to think things through. But if we've been really honest, like, you already know what to do. And I think the core of what's actually happening is that you're not moving in the same way that you used to. And that's scary, right? Because when I speak to clients who are in this position, they're experiencing a lot of internal friction and things are feeling internally heavier than they need to be right now, right? What's actually happening is that they're in a moment of transition, right? Where they have gone from hard work being their identity to hard work is no longer the thing that is moving me right now. And I don't know what to do next, right? So if you're in that position, you're like, I feel like you're speaking to me, chances are hard work became your identity. You were the one who could handle things. You were the one who didn't ask for help. You were the one who took on all the responsibility. You were the one who said yes. You were the one who outworked your doubt. You were the one who said that you could survive anything. And you did, right? But what's happening right now is that you don't need to survive in the same way anymore. You don't need to like push in the same way right now, or your reality right now is different. And the example that I'll give of where that showed up for me is when I was about to become a parent for the very first time. I had this kind of internal resistance all the time, and I didn't really know what it was. And then when May was born, I realized that how I've always operated and how I've always worked genuinely was no longer going to work for this next kind of phase of my life. Like, I couldn't put the blinkers on, fucking bury my head in work and just do the thing at all costs, because now it was coming at a cost that was fucking bigger than I wanted it to be. It wasn't just a cost to me anymore. It was a cost to my wife. It was a cost to my kid. Like, and for me, my values then came up of like, this isn't how I want to be living, right? So what happens in all of that is, because you're in a moment of transition, your nervous system is not knowing how to actually move now. It's it's relied on hard work and pressure and proving to get you going before, whereas now it's like, haha, I don't have that anymore. So the fire isn't as loud, and this panic that used to chase you before doesn't seem to be chasing you right now, and the needs for where you're at right now are different. And here's the thing, you know you probably need to operate differently. But even in being aware of that, it leaves you feeling like really exposed. Like, if I'm not grinding, who am I? If I'm not slightly overwhelmed, then how am I going to get going? If there's no pressure, then like what's actually happening? And all of what's happening beneath that is I don't know how to trust my new system of operating because I've always trusted this, right? So your nervous system was trained to only move when under pressure, for example, and now that that pressure has shifted, your body doesn't actually have that same urgency anymore. So people then feel this overwhelming sense of saying like, I'm stuck here and I don't know what to do, like I'm stuck. But you're not stuck, right? What's happening is you're smack bang in the middle of like adjusting to a new version of yourself, like a version that doesn't need this panic to perform. And that feels unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe, unfamiliar feels flat sometimes, unfamiliar feels like you're losing your edge. But what's happening is you're learning how to move without fear as the engine, or without this type of dirty fuel. And what I'd always say here is there's always two phases to how everybody kind of like creates their success or starts their journey. Like phase one will always be about hard work. Phase one will always be about like pushing through, and there'll always be an element of like having dirty fuel. And what I mean by that is, like, I know what got me going in the early days was like sticking two fingers up and being like, fuck you, I'll show you. Like there was this proving energy that like drove all my decisions. It just made me work like a workhorse. And then when May came along, it's like that same fuel just wasn't giving me the life that I needed or the feeling that I needed behind closed doors. And that created friction because I didn't know what to do next. So if you're in that position and you're like, yeah, that feels an awful lot like me, and I feel this resistance on a daily basis, I feel like I'm constantly stuck, I feel like I keep hitting the ceiling and I don't know how to break past it. What's happening here is that we just need to look at the fuel that is driving you and how we change things up, right? So the first step in that is, if hard work is something that you feel has built you, and you equate your success to just brute force, fucking getting it done, relying on pressure, all of those things, you're not wrong, right? We just need to give you new fuel, okay? Because the fuel right now, the fuel source is just no longer giving you what you want, okay? Sustainably, okay? It will run for a while, but then all of a sudden it'll start to feel sluggish and heavy, the same way as if you put the wrong fuel into the wrong car, right? It might get you going for a little while, but eventually it'll start to like break down. Eventually it'll start to like not be able to drive, okay? And that's probably what's happening internally for you. So the first step is this, and I'll always get my clients to do this, and I did this for myself, is right now your current trust that you have on how to operate, how to get shit done, how to move, is hard work. It's like it's the only lever that's available to you. And what makes you pull the lever is an element of pressure. So right now there's a reliance and a trust of the levers I trust, and the levers I fall back on are hard work, grit, determination, and pressure, right? As if that's the only lever to pull. But this next phase is about understanding a new fuel source so you can actually have multiple levers to pull at any one time, okay? So we go from pulling the only lever, which is hard work and pressure, to having multiple levers. And how we define and discover our other additional levers is we take hard work, we put it at the top of a piece of paper, and we ask ourselves, what strengths did I develop by working really hard? What characteristic traits do I have? What like values do I possess because of hard work being the vehicle to get me here, right? So for example, yes, I can rely on my determination, I can rely on my work ethic, I can rely on getting shit done, right? And I trust that as the only lever. But when I did this exercise for myself, I realized that I learned a lot about intuition, I learned a lot about organization. I learned a lot about discipline, albeit through a brute force, white knuckle kind of space, but still I had discipline. I learned a lot about commitments. I learned a lot about trust. I learned a lot about keeping my word to myself. And when I take all that in terms of strengths, right, and I really analyze them, now I have not just hard work, I have organization, I have discipline, I have intuition, I have trust, I have like my work ethic. Now I have 5 different levers. Just think of that for a second. So instead of relying on just that, now I'm looking at my strengths, I'm looking at my values, I'm looking at integrity, for example. That's what helped me build more of my work ethic. Like it was the more integral I became of myself, the more I learned that actually I could work harder. Whereas if I started to rely on integrity now as a fuel source, that changes the game, right? Now the intention is cleaner, right? So the decisions I make now are cleaner for myself. So instead of I need to prove myself and I need to grind and I need to hustle, now I need to be strategic, and I need to be strategic in the fact that the things that I do need to also be integral to who I am. And how I do this by leaning into my intuition, and how I do that then is being organized. So now I'm falling back on, instead of proving and hustling and grinding, I'm falling back on integrity, truth, intuition, like, and making cleaner decisions from there. And that to me is a thing that can completely change how you operate, because you start to realize then that everything that was standing in my way up until this point was capacity and energy, because I was giving so much away in the pursuit of proving. And it got me my level of success, but it also came at the cost of maybe myself, or my relationship with myself, or my relationship with others. And now that cost is too much for me. So the next phase is learning to take what has built you, take out the strengths of it, and repurpose them in a different way. So instead of saying, well, hard work is the thing that's going to get me to the next level, maybe the next level now is about being strategic around the strengths and the values that build you also. And you'll find them by looking at what makes me fucking the best at what I'm at. Like, so for me, what makes me the best possible coach I can be? Yes, it is about hard work, but actually it's not just that. Like if I was to say what makes me the best coach ever is hard work, is it though? Or is what makes me as best a coach I possibly can is through integrity and truth and values and passion and purpose and organization and discipline and being able to kind of pull levers and that trust that I have in myself? Like, which makes me the better coach? I would say this one. And that's no matter what profession you're in, no matter what you do, whether you work for yourself or somebody else. They're the questions that you ask, because then you're falling back on your strengths. And because of that fuel, the intention behind it is different, right? So you get to a point in your life where you get to make a new choice to say, I want to now live and lead through the lens of X, Y, and Z, and let them be your values, let them be your strengths, because what you'll be doing is creating new levers for yourself to fall back on. Now, that is the first step of the process. The second step even is to start to trial it. Start to experiment with it. Start to put it out there and start to practice it. Practicing alone won't get you a new belief or a new identity. You have to practice and inform. And what I mean by that is, now they start to operate in a more like organized way, a more disciplined way, a more integral way, a more truthful way that also gives back to me. Instead of just hard work, I now need to actively look for all the ways that benefited me. So if I'm more organized, I'm not relying on pressure to get me going, i.e. I'm not relying on a deadline to kind of push me forward. I now am learning that the more organized I am, the more I can actually be more present, and the more I can find more, let's say, balance, for example. And what I mean by that is, if I'm always leaving things to the last minute, it also might be starting to interfere with my family life, my ability to be able to switch off or not, my ability to be able to be fully present, because I'm always thinking and I'm always going and I'm always on. Whereas the more organized I am, the more I'm learning that actually I get to kind of pull the levers of, now I've been organized in my workspace, it gives me the permission and gives me the guilt-free opportunity to be able to now be with the people that matter without the head noise, without the guilt, without the rumination, without the pressure, right? Because that's you then informing a new system and a new way of operating and showing yourself the benefit. Because if you're not spending time to inform it, it's really hard for your system to kind of settle into, this is what we're now continuing to do and move forward. So the information piece, so we have the awareness piece of switching up the fuel is step number 1. Step number 2 is starting to integrate it and putting it into practice, like putting it out there and maybe making structural changes, maybe making behavioral changes to be able to practice it more, right? And take those in a micro level. And then from there, once you've that done, is informing how beneficial those new structural changes were or behavioral changes were. Because when you do that, then you solidify the baseline. So you give, I hate using these words, but you give evidence and proof to this new baseline to say, we've operated like this, and here's the benefit to us, instead of it being a threat, right? Because when you try something new, particularly with a new identity, your nervous system will register that as a threat and then actively work against you. So by informing it, you create this new kind of baseline that is of so much benefit to you, and you get to see that, right? So they're the 3 steps that I want you to take, because success ultimately gets to feel light, right? And if success is feeling heavier than it needs to be, chances are the fuel that you're running on is the fuel that is no longer going to give you what you need. And you get to create change to allow you to feel more at ease, to feel more at peace, to feel more like your success isn't costing you you. And it's as simple as that. So I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, just feel free to shoot me a message in the comments at the Mindset, I was going to say the Mindset Coach, at Holistic High Performance Academy, and we will carry on a conversation from there. But really what we're looking at is creating a new fuel source so that actually success can feel light again. See you soon.